April 25th of 25. Lot to talk about, Brendan. You got the crawl, the draft last night, domination by the SEC.
I got it all.
And in 15 of the top 32 picks you just said in the first round, we're going to talk about the
SEC domination in the draft. Are you surprised?
Not at all, but conference hasn't won the national championship 2 straight years. And so that means coaches are now going to have to account for, you had all this talent, why aren't you winning the national championship? But that's what makes it fun, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't work for a living, so yeah, it's just more drama for us to talk about. I mean, you just get out of winning the Natty, and now we got to go talk about, a whole bunch of fun stuff with the draft, and then, all sorts of crazy stuff with the NIL, and you've got a great guest from across the pond. So, happy Friday.
Happy Friday. And take a picture with your phone, the QR code. We're live streaming on 7 channels at the same time every morning at 8 a.m. Central, Monday through Friday. Follow us on X to take a picture of that, and on the YouTube channel, which is loaded with content morning to night.
Oh my God. We were stacked yesterday, man. We had so much content flowing out of this channel yesterday. It was sick.
It really is.
This show with all the great guests that Rob gets, everything else, and then we turned around and we did what else did we do yesterday? The Dukes Scoop podcast, which was really good, that you can check out. And then we did Auburn Undercover yesterday. Kevin Skarbinski did a show yesterday with a great interview. And then, of course, rounded out with the Buddy Martin show. Couldn't get any better than that. So
I got to be on there with Troop and your dad last night. That was awesome.
Awesome content, man. We are changing the game, man.
It really is. And we got a special guest we're going to have batting in the leadoff position. George Somerville. Met him last summer at SEC Media Days. Touchdown UK. Doug Dean, Frank Duffy going to be in here with us as well. And just how popular is college football. George, everybody on this show originally came from the UK. I'm Scotch-Irish. Dean here is an Irishman. Buddy Martin, I'm sure, is Irish or Scottish.
My daughter's middle name is O'Quinn.
There you go. And
my first name is Brendan. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, my eyes are blue, and I can hold my own at the pub.
That's right. And we love, I've been over there several times, and Nigel Price, my great friend who built our website and has been with us for years. He's watching right now from Hereford, England. And he's, of course, lives here in America. But a lot of interest in college football here. But I was just blown away by the passion that you have and the fans over in Scotland, Ireland, Wales, England, the British Isles. So have at it, George Somerville. Welcome, and thank you for sharing your time with us.
Well, morning, everybody, and thank you for having me on. I was going to say, when you were going down all the lists of the countries in the UK that you're all attached to, I'm glad I'm not Welsh, because there was no Welsh blood in there. But thank you very much for coming for allowing me to come and have a chat with you. It was great to meet you all in Dallas last year. I mean, it was great to get across to SEC Media Days. Yeah. As you know, Rob, I had an absolute ball over there. I was second time at Media Days. And it's great to see, you watch the game from afar, 3,500, 4,000 miles away from where you guys are just now. It's great to be over and in the midst of it and talk to you all guys and present. So it's great to be with you.
Well, it is, and again, it's so cool because we're all from where you're from. And now, where do you live in Scotland?
So I'm in Glasgow. So I'm from Glasgow, born in Glasgow. I've moved about a little bit to Edinburgh, and then moved down to London. I think I was still in London when I met you guys, and I've moved back. So so Glasgow's on the west coast. It's the city closest to New York City, as the crow flies. So the west coast has got a very strong affiliation with Ireland. And also the USA in terms of migration across to the States.
Yeah, well,
George, tell everybody at home, like what you do, the uniqueness of this all, because we know you and love you and met you, but I'm seeing a Tim Tebow jersey behind you there, 15, a bunch of college game day stuff. You don't live in the States, tell everybody what you do and what you're about.
So I write for a media outlet in the UK called The Touchdown, and The Touchdown set up, let me see, 10 years ago now, by a group of people who were just really interested in, as we call it, American football. And no great surprise, that started as an NFL-based site, but very quickly, with the interest that's in college football, they started to look for people who could write about college football. And myself and two other guys were writing for another website, but we also had podcasts. The podcast is called The College Chaps. And we decided at that point, Ollie, Alex and I, to move across the Touchdown and start writing for them there. And the uniqueness about the Touchdown is that it's a group of maybe 35 to 45 writers at any one time. We don't have any sponsorship. It's almost like a writers' cooperative. Everybody just writes as they want. We've got some editors who make sure that we cover all of the bases that we can. We've got someone who writes about the Canadian Football League, and there's a hardcore, probably about 8 or 9 of us who write about college football. And this year, for the season, we surpassed 1 million views. Now, we don't compete with the big guys. We don't have any sponsorship. As I said, there's no revenue as such from the website. And I guess that goes to your point, Rob, about the interest in the game over here. The interest in college football is spiraling, and I'm sure we'll go on and talk about the game in Ireland, but it's quite incredible how quickly the college game is becoming such an appealing, attractive proposition. Now, we all know the college game, so we kind of understand just how good a proposition it is, but for those people who may be more aligned to the NFL, because the NFL has got a huge viewership over here, it's quite an easy transition to make from the NFL to college. And the draft last night is a really good example of that. Yeah. And then once you've got people who start to look at college and try and get a little bit more familiar with it, the Brits love to go to Florida on holiday, so they'll undoubtedly pick up on an NFL game, but the Saturday before that, there'll probably be a college game that's on in the locale that they can go to. So it's very easy for people to pick up on that. And I think, as we all know, once you get into the college game, you're absolutely hooked on it. And the NFL kind of pales into, it's a pale comparison compared to so we're now seeing a real strong growth in the interest in the college game over here.
Love it. Doug?
George, I don't know if are you knighted? Should I refer to you as Sir George Somerville? Or?
No, I'm Scottish, so we definitely don't get knighted. That's we definitely don't get knighted. But
William Wallace.
Party foul there. I apologize. I'm speaking to you, George, from Birmingham. Not that Birmingham over the pond, but Birmingham, Alabama, here in the deep South, where we have a pretty fierce rivalry you may have heard of, the Iron Bowl, Auburn and Alabama. Auburn looks forward to getting on the better side of that in the years ahead, which would be my bet long term. I think there's a balance of power shifting. It's an odd question I have, because you were just talking about how people in UK and in Europe, there's a growing fondness or curiosity about what we call football, American football, college football. I'm taking the opposite futuristic view that because of NIL, the alienation of some, not all by any means, the football product in America is still alive and well in college, but I think it's going to get carved down to the top 40-ish and start to look like the NFL, NFC, and AFC, and that potentially opens the door, and that's what I want you to muse about, which might be out of your wheelhouse a little in what you cover, the possibility of growing soccer in the U.S. at the college ranks as an alternative and exciting sport for those programs that might not have the money to compete at the playoff level in college. Do you understand my question? If you can just talk about how that may play out over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've been traveling to the States for nearly 30 years now, and I've seen the expansion of soccer in the States. Now, I'm old enough to remember back in the day when, Pele and Bobby Moore and people like that went to the New York Cosmos. Johan Cruyff went to the Cosmos. And that venture it was great, but it didn't last very long. Now, I'm straying a little bit from your question, but you look at the success of the MLS now, and in a similar way that NFL teams are coming across to the UK and now wider Europe to play fixtures. Premier League teams are going across to the US, go across you guys, so the interest in the game is growing. And I think when you've got that interest, the parallels are very similar. When you've got that interest, that strong interest, it's not a flash in the pan, that feeds through. Now, back to when I first travelled across the US, I had a friend who was at UNLV, and, the sports was not huge at that point. UNLV was very much a kind of business administration, TV, film school. But you see how the evolution has come with the attraction to different sports. And soccer's a really good one because women's soccer is huge, men's soccer is huge. And I think that does start to, kids are playing that at a very young age. And when you get them at the grassroots level, that interest starts to continue. Now, not to get into this debate, but there's health issues over playing gridiron. So parents will push kids into a kind of soccer environment. And I think when you've got that passion, when you've played something, I think the UK is a little different. I could be wrong here, but kids typically, or I certainly, had a sport, and I played one sport, where a lot of your kids will play many sports. How many times did we hear last night that the guy who got picked number 3 was also a baseball player, was also a basketball player, right? So I think it's about getting that interest really early, getting them hooked. And it's the NIL, and we use the NIL as a kind of all-encompassing, right, is really interesting, because we know there's a danger that certain sports may lose their funding, or their funding may be diminished. One of my co-hosts on the podcast is a volleyball coach in this country, and there's an interesting program that they've got where kids who play volleyball in the US and may have expired eligibility can come across into Europe and play an extra year of eligibility. And a couple of years ago, I was over at the SEC head office in Birmingham, and we were talking about these kind of cross pollinations of kids that are moving back and forward across the pond to advance their sports careers. So I think there's a real possibility. The interesting thing now, I don't need to tell you guys, but if you look at college sports 5 years ago versus today, it's almost unrecognizable in terms of what has happened, right? And it's that old adage, if you think what technology was like 10 years ago and what it's like now, what's it going to be like in 10 years? Well, what's sports, college athletics going to be like in 10 years' time? So I think there's a huge opportunity. There's a lot of doom and gloom, but there's also a huge opportunity for kids that are maybe in less pronounced sports.
Well, George, one thing for sure, and I think Doug and Frank Duffy, good Irish Catholic here, is on the phone with us on the show. Every one of our kids growing up played soccer. And in America, when you're young, and it's great for the footwork, and now there's so many Nigerians coming over here that are 6'5", 320, that were great soccer players. And you look at them athletically and academically. Holy cow, that's a 1 and 1 equals 3. It's unbelievable. But I think you heard what he said, Doug, and Frank is down in, I think, Perry, Georgia.
Yes, I'm here at the New Market Gift and Flower Shop. I don't show with my wife. I don't know if I'm paying for past transgressions or I'm getting get out of jail free cards for the upcoming college football season.
That's the latter.
Bengal One is back in commission. My RV is back in commission. I'm ready to go to my road trips. And by the way, sir, you are more than welcome, my Scots-Irish friend, to come over, because you can come and worship at the Cathedral of College Football at LSU's Tiger Stadium one night. Because I have gone over to worship at all of the cathedrals of golf.
You homer.
Yep, I have been to the Old Course at St. Andrews, Turnberry, Carnoustie, Royal Troon, Prestwick up in the north. So there are cathedrals of our favorite sports, and you own the golf cathedrals. I own the college football cathedral.
I love
that. Sounds like a good deal.
How about? Hey, you know what would be cool, Frank? He was talking about a lot of Brits like to come over to the Gulf Coast down in LA. Think about this: planning a week vacation of time at the beach down in the Panhandle, LA, Orange Beach, and then a college football game to top
Get
that off.
Saturdays. Get 2 college football Saturdays and have the time in between at the beach would be awesome. I would tell you to go to Jordan-Hare when like a Mississippi State or especially a Georgia would be a great one. And then if you can catch LSU and Alabama and Baton Rouge, it is a sight to behold.
Well,
and go to the cocktail party in Jacksonville, Florida, Georgia.
Absolutely.
Well, but Baton Rouge is Death Valley is very high on my list of must go to. Last year I was across. I was in Starkville for a game. I got press credentials for Mississippi State against Arkansas, and I did a bit of driving, and I actually flew in and out of New Orleans, and I decided to stop off in Baton Rouge on the way back, and I got into Tiger Stadium, but it was empty. So the next time I have to come back and do it when it's absolutely full, and it has to be at night, right? You can't do Tiger Stadium any other time.
You got it, my friend.
Hey.
And there'll be some Bushmills or some Tullamore waiting for you.
I look forward to that. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I want to ask you both because Doug had some great questions, and the interest in American college football. And Doug talked about NIL and all the stuff we have going on. We've had, speed bumps along the way, George. When they put all the games on TV, people didn't think anybody would go, and all it did was attract more people to want to come to the games. Talk about fans, like schools in the SEC. We'll just focus on the 16 teams in that league. Groups of folks over there in the UK and what they do as far as getting together in pubs or how do they consume their football? And obviously, we want them all to watch this podcast and this channel.
Well, I was thinking about this because I had a feeling you were going to ask me about this. I like to think that there may be kind of 3 distinct groups. There's those people who are already American and are over here. And there's a really strong, thriving alumni base. So Tennessee, Georgia, Texas, and those are predominantly, not exclusively, but predominantly in London, where most people kind of migrate to. So they tend to have their own events. There's a lot of what we call sports bars where you can now watch the games, right? So you can go to a sports bar in London or frankly anywhere in the UK and watch a college football game. Then you've got the casual observer who's maybe an NFL fan and is maybe in the bar on a Saturday night and just happens to catch it, or maybe wants to watch a game because they've seen the pre-game hype of the Iron Bowl, for example. And then you've got people, and I think I come into this camp where they are dedicated college football fans. What I think, and it's interesting because over the summer I'm writing a piece for the Touchdown about the growth of college football in the UK and Ireland, so your invitation was timely. What it strikes me is we're missing somewhere for college football fans to come together in the UK. The NFL is an obvious one. The international series has 3 games a year, so everybody descends upon London and gets to meet. And you've heard the stories about everyone wearing different jerseys. It doesn't matter what team is playing; everyone's got one of the 32 jerseys. The closest we've got is Dublin. And I was across last year for the Florida State Georgia Tech game, and that was quite interesting for me. That was the first. The previous year had been Notre Dame against Navy, and that was predominantly attended by US-based Notre Dame fans. You couldn't get a ticket for that for love nor money. And I can't remember of the 47,000 capacity, ticket holders, 40,000 were Notre Dame fans from the US, right? But this year, there was a much more eclectic mix, far more eclectic mix. Now, that game is set up to bring tourism to Ireland. The Irish Tourist Board have never shied away from that.
Yeah.
But the mix was much greater this year. And when I was across, it was really nice to see people walking the streets of Dublin with a Auburn jersey, a USC jersey, Northwestern jersey. And that, for me, was the first time that we started to see the kind of world starting to collide. So, watching...
And if you see an Alabama jersey, toss them in the River Liffey.
No, show them love.
Toss them in the river.
we're all for the SEC here, Frank, aren't we? So it's really nice to see that, because instead of going and just seeing Georgia Tech or Florida State, you're now seeing how far it spreads. And it was interesting. I don't know if I've got time to tell this anecdote, but I've been interviewing some people for the piece that I'm writing, and I've interviewed some fans of the game who have reached out and said, I'd like to be a part of it. This blew me away. 2 fans of college football who are diehard fans had never been to a college game in their lives until they both independently visited Huntsville, Alabama. One guy was over doing a music tour. He was, loves country music. Was trying to. He was going to different concerts and bumped into a group of people at the concert he was at who turned out to be Auburn fans, and they dragged him to Jordan Hare. His first game was at Jordan Hare. And another chap who was working in Huntsville was from the south of England, and his workmates dragged him to an Alabama game. And I thought that how cool a story that was, both ending up with Huntsville of all places, but also it kind of shows you it's not just the traditional, I've watched the NFL for 10 years, now I'm going to watch college football, or I've been to Orlando and I'm going to go and watch UCF or buy a UCF shirt. College football in this country is evolving in many different ways, and I just thought it was a really cool story.
It's mining down.
Doug.
It's mining down to the specific, the specific teams. And just like when an American goes over to England or the UK, they think it's all London, but it's not. You have different areas. You have Wales, you have Scotland, the beautiful Highlands of Scotland. So every different area has their own flavor, their own sort of history and tradition. Same thing with college football. You can absolutely, if you're a Brit or a Scot or an Irishman, you can find a team whose fan base and their style of passion will align with yours. And I think that's fantastic over there.
Yeah, George, before we go to Doug, I want to say one thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, but Ralph Jordan Jr., Jordan Hare Stadium, that is Jordan, that's a Welsh name. Ralph Jr. told me they came into West Virginia and worked in the coal mines, which a lot of people in Wales do, and they pronounce it. It's interesting, in central Alabama, from the Black Belt, from Selma all the way over to Monticello, Georgia, in that central part of the state, they pronounce Jordan as Jordan.
It is Jordan Hare Stadium.
Jordan Hare Stadium.
I get pissed off when people say Jordan.
Or the Yankees in New York call it Auburn. It's not an O, it's Auburn.
And Hare is a Scottish lineage. Hare, H-A-R-E.
George, I a couple of things that I know you'll relate to. But first, I need to tell you a little about Frank Duffy and Robin. We will go at each other. Pardon me. We'll go at each other. Sorry, I had mic trouble. We'll go at each other playfully. And when it gets to be game week, it gets more serious, the rivalry, but it's never personal. In fact, Frank Duffy and I entered this reciprocal deal where we will both agree to go sit together and watch LSU play Auburn each year when we can. His guys have had the better of Auburn, but them days are gone, Duffy. It's a new day on the plains. But I got to, just so that George will appreciate we have a little difference of opinion. I would be the first to say that it is not fun to go to Death Valley in Baton Rouge, LSU on a Saturday night and try to get out of there alive with a victory. And when you do, it means something because it's that good. But Frank, Come on. Let me quote the great Bud Poliquin, Syracuse writer, covered the Syracuse Orangemen. And you could look up Scott Van Pelt on ESPN, same glowing terms. In 2002, the Orangemen came to Jordan Hare, and Auburn was able to win in a triple overtime. Bud Poliquin goes back, bemoaning the lack of game day excitement and pomp and ceremony at Syracuse, having been in Jordan Hare at night. Here is what Bud Poliquin said, and I quote, "Believe me on this, please. I have descended into college football's Grand Canyon. I have stood in its Alps. I have gazed at its ocean sunset. I have attended a game at Jordan Hare Stadium in Auburn, Alabama, and I've been changed forever." Now, I'm just saying, it's the home of the kick six, the most dramatic finish in any sport, at least at the college level.
Yep.
So we're all pretty proud of our product down here, George.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we are. And by the way, that kick six, half the state of Alabama and the entire state of Louisiana was running with him down that sideline.
Yeah, and I should have given a warning at the outset of the show. I am in that today is Father of the Bride weekend for me. My youngest has her nuptials tomorrow night. So thank you. And the audacity of any young man to think he is worthy of marrying my daughter. But I do approve heartily of this young man. It's going to be a fun weekend.
By the way,
That's right.
Doug, as the third son-in-law, he has huge shoes to fill.
Yes, he does. The bar has been set pretty high, but he's up to the task.
You have hit the son-in-law jackpot.
I couldn't agree more.
He definitely has. George, Ken Capps and Bo Carter. Ken introduced you to Brendan and me at SEC Media Days. And I'll tell you, our producer, Brendan Martin, is unbelievable. When we got to Dallas at the Omni, the first thing he did was set up a studio in our room. And we had people coming up there every morning, day, and night doing shows and stuff. And Ken Capps goes, "Ken's watching right now." And he said to tell you hello. And he and his family are going to London this summer. So he's going to look you up. And Bo Carter, they're both watching. And he said, "I know he lives in Scotland." I said, "But you've moved back to Glasgow." But it was so fun when we met you. And I think we had you on first, and then you went downstairs and got on the set with Paul Feinbaum, former Memphian who lives about to be back in Birmingham. But George, I think it's so cool for us as Southerners. 95% of us are Scotch-Irish descent. We're from County Donegal, is where most of my
Mother's
family
maiden
came
name
from.
is O'Gara.
Galway. Galway Bay, Brown with an E. It's Irish. And it just gets us so excited, like what Frank said and what Doug said. And Florida, you got to go to the swamp at 11 a.m. It's like an outdoor steam room. But the passion.
Make sure you hydrate.
The passion that we have. Drink plenty. But what about getting a group of people together? I think it'd be cool to bring them over here. We've got fans of all the schools. Let them know when they're coming and hook up have a big tailgate party, because I see we better in America be looking at tourism and bringing college football tourism for a week-long deal, golf, the beach, and football, and then you get a week to recover. Your body's going to need it.
It sounds perfect. But what's really encouraging now when on social media is great for this kind of stuff, where we see people who are interested in the game over here who go away and set their own itineraries. And I've done it countless times now, where you fly into New Orleans and you fly out of Charlotte or whatever it might be, right? So there's a lot more people, and of course tickets have become readily available online, so you can buy them. You have to buy them off secondary market typically, but you can get them off the secondary market. And then people rent a car. It's so easy to hire a car in your part of the world, right? So we see a lot more of that. And I joke actually about Florida, but actually we've managed to reach out beyond that, and you'll be amazed at how many Brits are moving across the kind of SEC footprint, because I think, Frank, you nailed it on the head, right? If you're across for 2 weeks, someone like me who's passionate about college football, it's a bit of an art to try and find 2 games that you can go to on those Saturdays that are within easy access of getting to each other. So there's a bit of an art to it, but I've really noticed it when I'm talking to people, here about college football, how passionate they are about, getting. They're really into it. It's not just a casual acquaintanceship with the game. And then when they get it, I'd always wanted to go to the Swamp, like Death Valley. I've been to the Swamp, but I've not been for a game. Once you see those games, it's just
it's unbelievable.
They're amazing. The Arcathedrals, right? The Arcathedrals. When you go to Ben Griffin and look at the stadium. I'll tell you a funny story about the Swamp. We were passing through on our way to Georgia. We were going up to Athens for a game, and I was absolutely determined to stop at the Swamp, and my expectation was just stand outside and get my photograph taken in front of the stadium. And when we got there, it was a blistering hot day, and we noticed somebody going in
every day.
We noticed somebody going in the gate, and I was like, the gate's open, and I'm risk averse. I was like, no, I'm not going in. I'm not.
Oops.
Oh no, George.
Come back,
George. Security got him.
We're sorry about the tariffs. Come back.
we uncle. George hopefully will be back with us in a second. Hopefully
you can hear the passion in his voice.
Oh, it's great.
When he's telling the stories, right? I mean, it's so cool.
I want to ask him about when the NCAA or conferences schedule these early season games. Like, was it Dublin, Ireland that FSU and Georgia Tech played last year?
Yes.
Does that grab the attention of locals there? Is much of the stadium packed with people who are residents there? I'm curious his take on that.
I can just say what I saw on game day for the 3 hours before the game with Florida State and Georgia Tech, and of course I was focusing on it because of being in Atlanta. A lot of my Georgia Tech friends actually went over for the game. There was probably about 15,000 to 20,000 actually went from Atlanta. It was a big deal, and I can remember looking at that and seeing a lot of the Irish people in their shots. I mean, they were like doing the game day shots. It wasn't just Americans that were over there cheering for their teams. It was a lot of national, Irish people that were in attendance.
And I think that's both of y'all are right. I mean, you want that organic growth over there among the people that live there, but there's probably 800,000 expats that live in and around London. I know a lot of people. My son, he has a good friend from Memphis, and she graduated from University of St. Andrews and then went to the London School of Veterinary Medicine. Was over there for 8 years. And people, there's such a natural connection, isn't there, Doug? I mean, because I've been in Ireland, and I remember being in a pub drinking some black and tan Guinnesses, and they're about 11% alcohol. And I had on an Auburn jersey, had on an Auburn sweatshirt, and people were coming up to me and going, "Oh, I've been to the South. I once had a flat tire south of Birmingham." And I said, "Really?" He goes, 10 people stopped to help me. And when they found out I was from Ireland, they were offering me beer. And I said, "I got to drive." But friendliest people I've ever seen in the South. I said, "Well, because we're descended from where you are." And he goes, "Yeah, think about it. I'll have another beer." But there's this natural connection. And if you know, in the British military, all the infantry units are named after the local township. They're all, the whole, they're so clannish and so, regional. And I've been to Glasgow. Holy cow. That's a tough city, but hey, it fits college
football. He commented on, I was thinking about this a while back, but it'd be fun to look up the percentage. But Australia, and I'm sure UK and other parts of Europe, but especially Australia, has become the supplier of punters and I guess some place kickers in football.
Yes.
I mean,
football Australia.
What's in the water over? I don't know. Something to do. I'm sure they developed that powerful kick from playing soccer, and then they've refined it on how they punt, that rugby style punting, And some of them are real athletes, and they're a threat. If you want to, you can let them pull the ball down and run. But I bet upwards of 20. I bet 20 or 30% of college punters now are procured from Australia and UK and places over the pond.
Well, we kind of started that trend with Brad Wayne in 2011.
Yeah.
The punter who then faked the punt and ran 55 yards on Florida and ran for a touchdown, and even had the bravado and the balls to taunt him on the way down, and wound up getting a 15-yard penalty. Not only is our badass punter able to run a touchdown, he taunts the Gator linebackers who's going past them. So, no, you're right. That started a trend.
And the special teams coaches, you see it all the time. The problem they have when they bring these kickers over is you're booming it too far, brother. You're out kicking our coverage. So they have to teach them hang time more than distance.
And those tough
let me say something.
Australians brought from the penal colony who've descended from generations of criminals. They're so tough that they're so used to Australian rules football that they go down and like behead the guy, and they're like, "No, dude, you're our specialist. You can't go down there and throw your body."
Let me say something real quick about Winter Timber Outdoors, and hopefully George is rebooting. There he is. Winter Timber Outdoors open every day of the week in Athens, Alabama. It is turkey season right now, and you got to have, Doug, you know this, you've got to have the right loads. Migra turkey loads are exceptional. You've also got to have ground blinds, the camo, and you need snake boots. Look, they've got snake boots and all that. I was out last Friday, my friend Joel Johnson over in Burnt Cane, Arkansas, which is kind of near Hughes, not very big, right outside of Memphis. And this close stepped on a cottonmouth, about a 3-footer. About, as big around as the end of a Louisville slugger. And that thing.
Them some bitches will chase you too.
Yeah. So get your gear at Winter Timber. They've got everything for the shooting sports: Yeti coolers, Sitka gear, Dixie decoys, duck camp, over 2,000 shotguns, rifles, and handguns in the store. Now, George, this is a store they're going to grow in the footprint of the Southeastern Conference. The big store on University Drive in Auburn is going to open, it looks to be late July. But Winter Timber Outdoors, as Coach Dye would say, Doug, damn proud to be associated.
And let me give a pro tip, Rob, for people, so people don't suffer a venomous snake bite. Here in the deep South, I'm telling you, there is no such thing as hibernation, guys. In January, we will get a 70-degree day, and those timber rattlers and water moccasins will come out of hibernation. They'll be lethargic, but if you step on one, they're going to strike. So wear your snake boots year round.
Yeah, I got a pair of them. I got a pair. Danner makes unbelievable snake boots. I got it, Hewlett and Dunn. The only thing I think is my good friend at the Herpetoриum at the Memphis Zoo, the Gaboon Viper, a head as big as a softball with 2-inch fangs. I'm not going to check that guy out, but he lives in Africa, so I'm not going to see him. But George, you rebooted. You made it back. You're kind of like my pilot clients. Can you get your camera, because you shrunk a little bit, but if you get to where we can level you back up.
George, what I want to know, this, and I don't mean to make light of violent crime at all, but it's no secret. And when you have an Iron Bowl rivalry, there are aftermath stories when a team gets upset and a fan loses his mind and somebody ends up getting shot or injured or worse. Do you guys, does violence follow big rivalry games in your zip code across the pond?
Well, I'm often asked about the comparison between sports in this part of the world and where you guys are. And I think the read across is actually very valid, because I've said for a couple of times now, I live in Glasgow, and Glasgow's got one of the most heated soccer rivalries in the world when the Rangers play Celtic. So we're actually, the comparison and the passion is quite appropriate when we compare the two. Glasgow's always been known for have a very rough image attached to it. Growing up in Glasgow in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, not me, but it was a hard place to be. The shipyards and all of that kind of stuff. The city's managed to maybe revitalize itself a little. but the passion of the rivalry of the what we call the old firm derby game is still there. And in fact, in Glasgow, not to bore you guys, but the police force in Glasgow is they use these tactics, or they show these tactics all over the world, because the police force effectively split the city in two on game day. So if you go to a game, you won't see the opposing fans until you're actually inside the stadium. So it gives you an idea how heated the passion is. Thankfully, we don't have as many guns in this country as you guys have, so we don't have much in terms of that stuff. But yeah, you have the odd fisticuffs, that's for sure.
You mean you're defenseless over there? Is that what you're saying?
I think you guys would say we're defenseless. Yes,
George. I want to introduce Brad Bellamy from Landers Ford, the general manager, one of our sponsors. And before I do it, I want to tell you, I landed in Belfast, from Glasgow to Belfast one time, and had a few cocktails that morning. Went down to Dublin that afternoon. There was a soccer match going on, and y'all, I'm telling you, those fans. I've been to Iron Bowls. I've been to most of these cathedrals. That was an intense crowd. I mean, really intense crowd. We've all seen the movie Braveheart. The guys with the blue face paint, those are my ancestors, and I'm damn proud of it. So let me say this. Brad Bellamy, general manager, Landers Ford. We've got George Somerville from Touchdown UK from Glasgow on the show. That's our first international guest. I'm proud to say.
You've gone global, baby.
Yeah, talking about the passion for college football over in the UK. It would be great to have you come over here to America and speak to quarterback and touchdown clubs, because people over here need to understand. We've been through tough times before. It's always darkest before dawn. But after hearing what you say, I think college football tourism to America is the next big thing. And when they get here, they all need to get them a vehicle at Landers Ford. Brad, how are you?
That's right, man. Hey, good morning, everybody. George, good morning. Usual suspects. It's good to see you guys this morning. First things first, excited to talk a little bit of British football too, or UK football, or international. But man, it's going to be a great weekend at Landers Ford. Last weekend of the month, we continue to have the employee pricing for everyone event. So built for America, from America, and man, we've had an unbelievable month. We got 100 used cars. We loaded up on used cars over the last 2 weeks, because we know what the upcoming pricing and tariffs and the impact it's going to have in the marketplace. We're going to make sure we had as many used cars as possible to take care of our customers here in the community. So, Rob, glad to be on with you guys this morning. We continue to have the power promise, and also just a reminder, guys, of pickup and delivery and the opportunities we have there to take care of customers so they can enjoy their coffee. But recently, my Folgers Black Silk coffee continues to go up in price. So, now it's getting elevated.
Yeah.
Man, it's great to be with you guys this morning. I will tell you, outside of being an SEC nation and some of the games in the SEC, European football is about as good as it gets. I was fortunate enough in college to spend a semester over there. I went to a Champions League quarterfinal between Inter Milan and Valencia. I went to the UEFA Cup semifinal between Lazio and Krakow Wachovia. The way that international fans take over a city when they come, I mean, that's what's crazy, is they're all over, and they're drunk all day, and they are chanting things in foreign languages that we don't understand.
Yes.
Trying to pick fights. They don't use guns. They use beer bottles, which can be just as effective sometimes, at least based on Con Air. We saw Castro Troy get in a little bit of trouble because of a beer bottle. So anyways, guys, great to be here this morning. Good morning and good afternoon to you, good sir.
Yeah. George, along that line, what Brad said, that it's the chance. Now, can you imagine a group of Scotch Irishmen coming over to the Egg Bowl, Ole Miss and Mississippi State? I mean, those two schools, they hate each other. And I'd be going to those guys from Scotland, and I'd be, y'all pull for us. We want you on our side. But I wish there was a way we could come on a show over there and let them know how much we want them to embrace our game like soccer is over here, because this is really cool. Talk about that relationship.
I mean, we wanted just to go back a second to the Egg Bowl. I haven't been to an Egg Bowl, but on the podcast we talk about the great rivalry games that we'd really want to see, and the Egg Bowl's right up there. But one of the best experiences I had was tailgating, at the Grove in Oxford. I mean, that just blows your mind when you go there. It's not the largest piece of land, but they've managed to squeeze the maximum amount of people into that. And the chandeliers and
20 Elvis impersonators.
Hey, good looking women is an international language.
and when you're from a country that likes to drink, and then you go over there and you see what's happening. I mean, it's just quite something. But you're right, Rob. I mean, I think as a nation, and I include the Republic of Ireland in this, we love to travel to the States. We're all big fans of moving to, getting across. So it would be awesome if we could get, kind of a touch point where, and actually one of the things that I'm most asked about when people are going across to the US for a college game for the first time is, how do they get involved in a tailgate? And sometimes that's the most interesting things, because with the NFL, again, go back to, there's often NFL groups in the UK where you've got contact with the team. Sometimes the schools can not be as easy to get. They're easy to get hold of, but they don't always respond to you. So, I think having local supporters, fans groups, tailgaters, etc., that would be really helpful, because then we could just say to people, well, drop this guy an email and he can help you out and tell you where to go and what to do and stuff like that. But as for the relationships there, we love to go across and watch football. We love to go across and drink beer. We love to tailgate. So that relationship's already there. It's just bringing everybody together.
You had us at hello.
Haggis. Yeah. Yeah.
And by the way, if haggis, we make that with our dirty rice in Louisiana. It's basically haggis mixed with rice is what it is.
Yeah.
Well, we're not allowed to bring haggis into the country, right? The agricultural rules and regulations mean that I'm not allowed to bring your haggis across. So, although I did manage to find the haggis in the US, because we've got really good ties with the University of Georgia. They've helped us out a lot on the podcast. So at Christmas time, we sent them a bottle of whiskey, and we sent them a haggis, which we've managed to locate somewhere in the continental United States.
Love it. Yeah. Doug or Brad, anybody, y'all jump in here with George Somerville touchdown UK on this Friday edition of Sidelines. And by the way, I just want to say something. Brendan, if you could put the crawl again under there, NFL draft last night. We're on day 2, SEC, 15 of the top 32 picks. Almost 50%. We'll just basically half of the first round. And we hadn't won the national championship as a league in the last couple of years. George, we've loaned it to the Big Ten, which is kind of a rival with us. But, man, everybody started asking questions. Here it comes. Brendan Martin putting those awesome stats under there.
George, where are you located in the UK?
I'm based in Glasgow in Scotland. So Glasgow is the biggest city in Scotland. Edinburgh's the capital. They've got a castle, but we've got everything else. So
they can hear when they pipe them to dinner at Turnberry from Glasgow.
That's right. Actually, Glasgow, when I went to Turnberry and Royal Troon back 10 years ago. So, I mean, one thing that you guys have to offer is you get unbelievable local rates on some of the nicest courses in the world. You throw a couple of that out to some of these guys in the U.S. and you say, hey, hook me up to your tailgate and I got you taken care of on some golf, you're in for sure. But if y'all just show up and you're wearing the apparel, and you talk, most tailgates in the U.S., especially in the South, will welcome you with open arms. If you say, hey, we're here from Scotland and we came to watch the football game, we're huge Rebel fans or we're huge Mississippi State fans, you aren't going to have a problem. I mean, stories that you guys can share and what brought you here and everything else. I mean, we all have local connections at pretty much every SEC school that we could work with you on trying to get set up. But if you can't, if you just show up, I feel like you're going to get the love, because even for us, if we travel somewhere else, and there's a lot more friendliness amongst opposing fans in American college football than there is in most European cities when it comes to European. It's a different experience. I mean, especially when you have a
and
team
NFL here.
Yeah,
George, I'll see if I can articulate this. I'm of the opinion that once, if any American is intellectually curious about football as Europeans know it, not American football, and could go over, had the advantage of going and spending a month or two and really learning the finer points of the game, I think the passion would follow pretty quickly. Maybe not for everyone, but as you follow both and have been bathed in both sports and you cover American football, is it fair to say that if the strategic complexity and how teams can deploy differently to win games, is it roughly similar, or do you see complexity a little more in one sport or the other? I hate comparing both, but I know people are curious to hear from you on that.
I mean, from my perspective, they're quite different in terms of the strategy that are employed, right? Quite simply, in soccer, you've got both your offense and defense on the field at the same time, right? So it's quite interesting. And go back to the previous point that we were talking about. When you grow up playing soccer, you have this kind of inherent incumbent knowledge of the game, so it's there in the same way as you guys do, having played PB football and all the way through. You just got this kind of natural gift that you understand what's going on. I've got books in the library up there about formations and strategies and all of that kind of stuff for NFL and American football, which we have to try and learn as we go. So some of it is experience, some of it is just life experience where you're kind of picking up on it. To me, the American game is more convoluted and more complex in terms of the strategy. I mean, if you boil it down to its basic, it's quite a simple game. But actually, the way in which when you guys will talk about formations and all of that kind of stuff that just doesn't come naturally to us. And what's interesting is players who have come from this side of the pond, maybe they weren't playing the game here. Some of them were playing the game and then have to go across. Some of them will get picked in the draft. And then very quickly, you think of that, how quickly you have to get up to speed. Do you imagine joining an NFL training camp and getting up to speed with what they're doing? It's mind-blowing. If you're familiar with the game, it's even more mind-blowing if you're not familiar with the game. So, and we are seeing a lot more players. We've got a couple of programs over here. We've got the International Pathway program. We've got the NFL Academy, where kids can go there and learn the game at a very young age. And then the International Pathway takes them into college athletics. So we've got a couple of guys who have just gone, well, actually, just gone 2 years ago, went to Oklahoma and Penn State. But then we've got some players who, there's an international combine, they can try out in London, and then they can make it to the draft. So we are seeing, I can't remember who it was, I think Rob was talking about, African players in America playing soccer.
The Nigerians, yeah.
We are seeing, and in fact, my first SEC Media Days, I spoke to Nick Saban about this because they were just in the process of recruiting the number one German recruit. They already had a Finnish player on the roster, and they've got Aussie. Everyone's got an Aussie punter now, haven't they? But so you see how the game has become more global in that respect. Because the question I asked Nick Saban at that point was about how do you recruit, right? Because if you spend all your time recruiting, which all the big programs do, you're then, the days of just recruiting in Alabama and Georgia are gone, right? Alabama and Auburn recruit in California and Alaska and all these places. Now all of a sudden the world's your oyster, right? So how do you recruit in Germany and Finland and places like that? So the game's become more global. Technology certainly helps with that, but it's an interesting facet of the game where you guys are going to see, and I think the NBA is a good example. Look how many European, and basketball's a totally different kettle of fish when it comes to sport in Europe. But you look at the number of European players who play basketball in the NBA.
Yeah.
Well said.
Question for you, George. So, U.S. programs like Drive to Survive have dramatically changed how many people in America watch F1. I mean, I would say over the last 8 years, it's probably doubled or tripled because so many people were not. It's grown in popularity because of that show on Netflix. Six Nations has probably brought some more people into rugby that weren't paying attention to it before. Have you guys seen the impact to watching football because of shows like Receivers and Quarterbacks and some other documentaries that have kind of gone inside the game to kind of open up more about just how the game works, like or Hard Knocks or other programs? Has that brought some more popularity amongst people over there?
Yeah, Hard Knocks was really the first one that people truly embraced, right? Because if you remember Hard Knocks when it first started, was truly fly in the wall. Hard Knocks now is a little watered down. You don't get to see everything that's going on. But and the other one for college athletics, believe it or not, Last Chance U, right? Last Chance U was huge because all of a sudden people could see. And you might laugh at this. I've been to Scuba, Mississippi. I went to Scuba,
I knew it. Highway 45.
Right, I went there because of Last Chance U. We were traveling, and it was a relatively short detour that would get us to Scuba. So you can, I'm pretty sure we had we've had many fantastic guests on the podcast, but one guest we had who was truly fantastic was Brittany Wagner. You remember Miss Brittany from Last Chance U, and she was explaining how beneficial that was for the school in terms of just getting exposure outside of that small part of Mississippi, which is probably invaluable for them. Maybe not in terms of recruitment or enrolling or stuff like that, but just getting the name out there that people will instantly recognize. East Mississippi Community College. So there is. Yes, you're right, because Drive to Survive is a good comparison, right? You guys are just. It's NASCAR or nothing where you guys are, but I definitely got the sense that Formula One started to get a foothold, is pretty big now, mostly through a Netflix documentary. But Hard Knocks is the one that really got everybody kind of hooked because it was so raw and punchy at that time. It's a bit diluted now, but yeah, certainly, and it meant that people who didn't understand the game could still watch the program. You don't need to know about Tampa 2 defense to watch Hard Knocks, right? You see somebody who trains really, really hard and then gets cut as the 53-man roster. So there's some real personal stories there. A great watch.
Yeah. George, I don't know what's on your calendar for November.
Hold on, Kent. Brad, do you say you have to go to your sales meeting?
Oh, my bad.
George, thank you. You should plan a trip where you can go to a game and then stick around for the Monday to go to Touchdown Club. You got a free seat at the Landers Ford table. So love to meet you. Guys, thank you. Have a great weekend. Appreciate all y'all do and love being on the show. Thank you.
Ditto, same here. Thanks so much for your support, Brad. We love it. Landers, the best. George, these people he's serious. They are a title presenting sponsor for the Touchdown Club in Memphis. Get over here to Memphis. I'll tell you something funny, what happens. Back years ago from Memphis and May Barbecue, each year we salute a different country. Of course, we saluted Scotland. And the Sons of Bacchus, my team is a group, the Greek god of wine and merriment. We built a full castle, 3 stories down on the river. And thank you, Grandobs. But we had 3 people from Scotland that some of us had met. And Angus and one of the other ones both ended up moving to Memphis after Barbecue Fest. So there's a lot of relationship. And occasionally you can go down on South Main to Ernestine and Hazel's and run into Robert Plant, Mick Jagger. Jimmy Page was in Memphis 2 weeks ago at a volleyball tournament. I think he's got a granddaughter or relationship here. But the relationship, and I think Doug and Frank know this, it's so strong. But man, we'd love to be on your show anytime, any of us. And Gatorbait Media, you want to know about Florida, Brendan Martin and his dad on GatorbaitMedia.com. They'll hook you up with Florida for the VIP tour, possibly meet Steve Spurrier and the great coaches down there. This has been one of the funnest shows we've had, and we're gonna wrap it up. And Frank's doing penance duty down there at the art show, but it'll pay off during football.
The Home Sweet Home Marketplace and Art Show. As you can tell, I was standing over there by the fire alarm. I almost pulled it just to stop things. Now I'm outside because the lady started talking so loud. And look, I've got Penitentiary Rock right behind me. That's what I feel like my servitude is going to be today. Yeah. But right after this, I'm going to drive from Perry, Georgia to Oaklawn, to Hot Springs, Arkansas. My filly's racing. So if you want to get over to Ladbrokes and put a little action on her, she's in the second race at Oaklawn tomorrow. And she's got a real good chance. I was going to tell Brad, I ran into Brad at Oaklawn when she ran her first race, her first race out about a month ago. And I told him, I said, get your money back, put a little bit more on her tomorrow. Her name is Nip It in the Bud, second race. She's in great shape. So hey, put some ducats on her.
George, I had to yield to Brad. He was getting away, but quickly put on your calendar this November 29th, George, Auburn, Alabama, in Jordan-Hare Stadium. If you want to see the pinnacle of intensity in the SEC, we would love to host you. And I'm sure you got media passes, so you'd have a good view. Come see us, George.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome. Yeah,
George, we will get you in some fun tailgates. Doug is right, and so is Frank, but we're absolutely serious about it, and we'll help you anytime. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We're the most blessed people in the world. We get the best team, the best guest, and the best executive producer on the planet. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Have a great weekend. Go Ponies. Talk to y'all Monday.
Thank you.
Go Tigers. Thanks, George. Thank you.